Tower Fantasy may sound like an attraction at your local theme park, but at least you don't need to be this high to enjoy the ride.
Gamer Braves.
What's up everyone, it's Ben from Gamer Braves, and I'm proud to report that I'm not addicted to Genshin Impact. Which means I actually have a chance of getting laid. Jokes aside, Tower Fantasy may seem like a Genshin Impact clone at first glance, but I feel that it copies just enough of Genshin's homework while changing it enough to not get caught by the teacher. Now, I should inform you that Tower Fantasy has been embroiled in quite a fair bit of controversy even before launch. From being caught stealing Honkai Impact's assets, to copy-pasting Genshin's 5-star reviews onto its store page, and even having a horribly buggy CN launch that led to a lot of players' accounts being completely wiped. So yes, the developer/publisher have made controversial decisions in the past. So you should keep all of this at the back of your head. In fact, a recent post from the game's website outright warned players that bugs and issues are unavoidable after the official launch. So please, if you're watching this in the future and you encounter some major bug, do bear in mind that I recorded this video based on my experience from playing the preview build of the game. So it'll be great if you don't crucify me. From what I played in the preview build, my experience with Tower Fantasy has been pretty good. I did encounter a bug that caused my account to literally get stuck, but the fix was provided immediately right after. So hey, points for the devs for being quick and responsive, I guess. If you play Genshin, you'll be pleasantly surprised to find a lot of quality of life improvements. Like seriously, not having to hold down a button just to sprint feels so good. Going back to Genshin actually feels a bit worse. There's so many quality of life improvements here and there that make you go, man, why didn't Genshin have this? And that's just the tip of the iceberg. Improvements like having your HP regenerate outside of combat and being able to air dash just feels really nice. Also, dodging at the right moment triggers time stop, which ironically is one of the coolest features in Honkai Impact 3rd, the older, less popular sister of Genshin Impact. Tower Fantasy also has the benefit, or detriment depending on how you see it, of being a more social MMO-like experience. There's raids, world bosses, a clan system. So if you're the kind of player who likes to interact with others online, you'll find that most of these are welcome features. If you're like me, who hate virtual human contact as much as physical human contact, then you'll find this more of an annoying distraction. There's also PvP, and allow me to stress this, it's completely optional. Your gaming experience isn't going to be ruined because someone PK'd you. They can only fight you if you give them your consent. So if someone wants to rough you up, just say no. Tower Fantasy also lets you live the fantasy of being a sweaty, sleep-deprived MMO player by letting you ride on mounts. There's unicorns, motorcycles, and even the D-Walker from Metal Gear Solid 5. So in case you still haven't realized, Tower Fantasy is not a fantasy game. It's a sci-fi game, which I'm not complaining since instead of female armor which only covers the essentials, we have female armor which only covers the essentials. But wait, there's more. The game also has a lot of mini-games. Like most of the cool stuff that I just mentioned, they're there mostly just to distract you, but in a good way. And what's more MMO-like than having a detailed custom character creation? Some of you might love it, even though it's less than 1% of what you'll be doing throughout Tower Fantasy. But hey, if you couldn't pull Eula in Genshin, at least you can play it in Tower Fantasy, am I right? So even though it's not a pure MMORPG the same way Final Fantasy XIV is, there are nice MMO elements which really help it to separate from Genshin Impact. But while I do prefer the additions of this stuff to the gameplay of Tower Fantasy, I wouldn't describe the gameplay to be superior to that of Genshin's. The main reason is due to how the characters function during combat. One of the things that Genshin does really well is team building. You know, element synergy, switching characters on the fly, making your team and your life dedicated entirely to Zhongli. Stuff like this not only makes me appreciate the characters more, but the, forgive me for saying this, strategy as well. There are players who want to go hard, maximize their DPS, making in-depth team builds, optimize everything. Genshin can scratch that itch. For casuals like me who want to stare at armpits and thighs all day, I can build my team around that too. Tower Fantasy doesn't let you switch characters mid-combat. It lets you switch weapons mid-combat. So the end result is that the characters function more like skins for the weapons, since the weapons dictate the movesets, not the characters. I vastly prefer character switching instead of weapon switching during combat, because because characters are not objects. Meryl's sword looks great, but it doesn't turn me on the same way Yunjin wakes me up every morning. So on a related note to the characters, another big thing to talk about is the gacha. Now you're not mainly pulling for the characters here, you're pulling for the weapons. The characters are just the tissue paper on the side which comes with the Big Mac you ordered. You can also gacha for matrices, which are basically items that you can equip to your weapons to boost their stats and effectiveness. There's honestly not much for me to comment on about the rates. It's kinda depressing just like Genshin, or 95% of other gacha games out there that's not Azure Lane, but at least the pity is fixed. But again, I just don't feel the same way towards the characters of Tower of Fantasy, the same way Yunjin consoles me for being Chinese. What? So I don't feel that rush of excitement and tingling onset of gambling addiction when I pull the gacha in Tower Fantasy. But with all that said and done, I still recommend trying out Tower Fantasy. You see, amongst the gacha gaming community, there's something that is known as the honeymoon period. Just like how a married couple is so lovey-dovey during the first few months of getting married, gacha games are, more often than not, the most fun when you first start playing them. It's the reason why so many people, after nearly 2 years, are still playing Genshin. They get so hooked in by their initial experience that even though they might find a drop in content before the next big update, they still play religiously even though they treat it like a chore. All I'm saying is that right now, it's still the honeymoon period for Tower Fantasy Global. You might like the starting experience more than Genshin. You might hate it with your guts and punch a hole through the wall. But I do feel that you should give the game a shot simply because of the magic of jumping into a new world and experiencing it for the first time. If you hate the game later on, it's okay to drop it. We're never going to be able to beat a free-to-play gacha game, but we can always have fun with it before one day moving on to other things. After all, like its name, it's just a fantasy. So before you wake up, why not enjoy it? This has been Ben from Gamer Briefs. I hope you liked this video and sorry for the change in background. We're currently moving our office. But if you want to see a cool new background, be sure to subscribe to our channel and you can see it in our upcoming videos. And as usual, let us know in the comments who's your favorite character in Tower Fantasy or Genshin Impact. See ya!
Hey there! Thank you so much for watching our videos. Don't forget to give us a subscribe if you'd like to see more, and like so we know what kind of content you want to see. Got suggestions for new content? Let us know in the comments below too. Thank you so much again for watching. Take care, dudes.